One of the questions I get asked all the time from people is like, Brandon, how do I attract buyers into my funnels and my launches and my process? I just attract people that never buy. And what I have to remind people of is a good conversion rate can be anywhere from like 2.5% to 5%, which means that if you get 100 people coming in your funnel, only 2.5 to 5 people are actually going to buy. So it is virtually impossible to get 100% of buyers always coming into your funnels. But the better you get at teaching and creating demand and objection busting, it doesn't really matter how many buyers or non-buyers you get coming into your ecosystem. The reason why you're not getting sales is not because you're attracting or not attracting buyers or people with money. It's your ability to be able to create demand. It's your ability to be able to build trust. It's your ability to be able to overcome objections. And it's your ability to overcome the automatic reactions they're going to have as they go through your content and your process. And today's episode is dedicated to teaching you one simple process I love to use to overcome objections and create more demand. So if that sounds interesting to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, I believe, is episode number 5 of our 6-part series leading to our 2-day massive event palooza of the year, our messaging event of the year. This is a brand new training we've never done before. We've always done something called Master Your Profitable Messaging, but what we're doing is it's a little bit different. We are talking messaging, but we're talking about how to accelerate your growth in sales using communication and your messaging differently. So how do you teach in order to create demand? I think the way you teach and how you teach and your teachings are one of the most underutilized sales tools available to you. And most people think I'm just going to teach and educate and I'm going to be good to go. And as long as I add value in the form of information, then people will think, oh, I'm going to get, if this is what I get for free, what am I going to get inside the paid program? And that's an okay attitude to have, but you're missing out on all the other things you need in order to generate sales. And so I think the way you teach is an opportunity for you to create a huge amount of demand. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot in September 19th and 20th of 2024 in our 2-day event. So it's a brand new training that we're going to dive into that we've never done on this scale before. So that's coming up. But today what I want to talk about is actually objection busting. And so I wanted to talk about a simple process that we use when doing sales calls or even trainings to overcome objections. And so that's what this episode is dedicated to. That's what this episode is about. Now, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, for the video version of the podcast, you'll notice that I'm in a completely different setting. It's because I'm outside. I'm in California. We are moving back to California. My family and I moved to Arizona a couple of years ago out of California, and we're moving back. Missed the beach too much. Arizona was nice. I loved it. It was great, saving some money on taxes. But when you grow up at the beach, it's hard to leave. And so we are heading back. And so I'm just kind of in the backyard here recording because I don't have an office. And so please excuse the background. And then also, if you guys hear any background noises on the podcast, that is because I'm outside. So hopefully it sounds great. With that being said, I wanted to hop into the top objection busting sort of process that I like to use on our sales calls. And so, the first thing we have to understand when there's an objection is a lot of the times objections are automatic responses that people have. And usually those automatic responses come from it's like a safety mechanism. And so sometimes when people say oh, I don't have the money or it's too expensive, it's like, well, have they done the logical thinking of what is expensive, what price makes it expensive, what price doesn't make it expensive? Have they done that or not? Or was it an automatic reaction to the price where they're like, I just can't do it, or it's too much, or it's above my expectation? So you have to understand a lot of the times or even a timing issue. I can't do it right now. It's like, and then you want to dig into that. Why not? Why can't you do it right now? What's going on? And they may tell you all these different reasons, and then you can come up with solutions and try to poke holes in, all of that good stuff. But the point of I'm making right now is what we need to understand about objections is that they come from, in most cases, an automatic reaction. That's what they are. It's just an automatic reaction. Usually it's a safety mechanism. And the most common objections you're going to get are always going to be price, and it's always, and time are usually going to be the top two. In time means I don't have enough time to go through the program, or it's not the right time for me. And pricing is going to be always like, I just can't afford it, in most cases. Okay. So what I like to do, and what most people don't do when they're coming up with their objections, they use their objections. What they don't do is ask themselves, if I don't do this, how else am I going to solve this problem? And you have to understand, if people are coming to your trainings, if they're getting on a call with you, it's because they want something or a result or a transformation they don't have right now. And they think that whatever you're doing or teaching is going to help them get that, or working with you is going to help them get that. That's why they're coming to the trainings. That's why they're on the sales calls with you. That's why they're sitting there, right? But what happens is where they're making their decisions around, again, those automatic reactions are usually coming from a place of what's going to keep me safe. And most people, their natural reaction will be, their subconscious will tell them what is familiar is safe. That's what most people are going to be realizing. So when they come up with objections, you have to understand it's because their nervous system or their body or their automatic reaction is saying familiar is safe. The investment of the money, the investment of the time, this is not safe because it's unknown, and the unknown is scary. And so what's going to happen is their subconscious is going to give them this automatic reaction of too much money, or I don't have time for this, or whatever it may be, right? So the point I'm making is that they're going to have an automatic reaction. And what most people don't do is they don't sit there and say, is this a big enough problem for me that I need to get it solved? Is this causing a big problem for me if I don't do this? That's one thing they don't ask. The second thing they don't ask is, what other options do I have to fix this problem? Because I can tell you right now, if the problem is big enough, they're going to want it solved. Okay. So they're going to need it solved. The next question that it comes down to is, how are they going to get it solved? And if they're on a call with you or in a training with you, guess what? They literally do not know how to get this solved on their own, and they are desperately searching for an answer. So here's the objection busting process that I like to use. And when we do sales calls, or when we're on trainings and things like that, or I'm doing a pitch, there's two questions that I ask, because it all starts with trust, right? Number one, and I always tell people this, there's three types of trust we need. They need to trust us as a human to human, a person to person. Okay, so that's number one. And this is what most people call the know, like, and trust. The second trust we need is they need to trust our process and our ability to solve that problem for them. Okay, so they need to trust us and our ability to solve that problem. Number three is they also need to trust their own ability to solve the problem. They need to trust their own ability to solve the problem with our process. Okay, if they do not trust their own ability to follow our process, we're done, right? So this is why teaching is so important, because when you teach and you do it the right way, it also creates demand, because they start to see the process. And what happens is, when you teach, people will take your information and they're going to apply it to themselves. How all of your students do this, all the people in your free trainings and watching your content, this is what they do. They take your information. In fact, this is what you're doing right now. When you listen to this podcast episode, you're taking my information and saying, how does this apply to me? How do I work this into my pitch, my calls, my stuff? How do I make this work? Okay. And so that's what your students are going to be doing as well. And all of your other people are going to be doing it as well. And so when we teach, we don't want to overteach. We don't want to overwhelm, because when we do, they lose their own trust in their ability to follow our process. Okay. So the first thing we have to realize is the trust in those three areas has to be established, which means you have to teach very simply. You have to teach in a way that makes sense. You have to teach in a way where they can take the information and integrate it on their own, at least visually, like understand how they can use that information inside their own. They don't need to know how, but they can at least see the vision of here's what I'm supposed to do, right? So when I get on a sales call or we do like a pitch or something like that, what I always break down for people during the pitch is here are the 3 steps or our process or the phases that we're going to use to solve the problems that you have. And if I'm on a sales call, all the problems that they told me on the sales call that they have, I'm going to show them exactly where those problems are going to get solved in each step. So phase 1 is going to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. Phase 2 is going to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. Phase 3 is going to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. Okay. And then what I do is when we go to the pitch, when we go to, whether it's a sales call or webinar, I always ask them a question of, do you think our process will help you solve the problem that you're having? Because if you don't believe the process is going to help you solve the problem, then there's no point of even being here. So the process that I laid out for you, do you think it will solve the problem? And I would say 99% of the time, they always say yes, right? So if you do it correctly, they're going to say yes. And this is really effective on sales calls. The next thing I ask them is, do you think me, or if someone else is doing the sales call for you, do you think, like my sales team would say, do you think Brandon, right? So do you think Brandon, or do you think I personally have the ability to help you solve this problem? Do you think I can do that for you? Yes. Okay, great. And then usually at that point is when I will make the pitch, or I'll make the offer. And then if they have some sort of objection, like the price or this or that or the timing, I'll usually say, well, you told me that you know the process will solve the problem and you trust my ability to solve that problem for you. So what's really going on? And usually you're going to get to the root cause of the objection at that point. They're going to say, well, I'm just like, maybe I'm afraid it's not going to work, or I've done other coaching programs and they didn't work, or it's the timing isn't right, or the price is too high, right? So what I like to also do at this point is I ask them, is this a big enough problem? Like, is this really a problem that you want solved? And they usually say yes. And I said, okay, great. So we have an option in front of you and you trust the process and you trust my ability to be able to solve the problem. What other options do you have right now of solving this problem? And what is not solving this problem causing you, costing you? What effect does it have in your life? Because we can both agree that this is a big problem that you want solved, and we need to figure out an option to help you get it solved, even if that means not working with us. So what is your option on getting that solved? And I will tell you that what most answers will be, most people will come back and they'll either tell you they're thinking of someone else, a competitor of yours, or what they're going to do is they're going to tell you an option of something they've already been doing or have already tried because it's familiar. Again, there's automatic reactions can be like, well, I'm just going to try this. And usually it's going to be things like, I'm going to stay in the coaching program that I've been doing for the last couple months, or it's going to be, I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing. What I've been doing. I'm going to try it a little bit more. They might say, I'm going to do a little bit more research on my own. I'm going to watch more YouTube videos and try doing that. There's going to be something. In most cases, they're going to tell you either I'm going with another coach or a competitor or thinking about them. I'm going to do nothing, or they're going to say something, which is something they've already been doing in the past. So the question you now ask is, has that worked for you already? So if they said something like, well, I'm going to go continue with this coaching program and finish that out first. It's like, has that coaching program been working for you? No. Well, then why would you continue to do it? Why put money into it? But why would you continue? That's fine. But why would you continue to invest more time into something that has not been working for you instead of investing your time in something that could work for you? Or they might say something like, I'm going to continue watching more YouTube videos and try my own. It's like, well, has that been working for you? No. Well, then why would you continue to do that? And then you want to bring them back to, we have the process. You trust the process. You trust my ability. We have an option in front of you that you trust. Why would you not take us up on it? Why would you not move forward with it? And usually what happens at this point, especially if you know their price point of their programs and their products, you can always tell them, like, this is something that we do sometimes because we have an ROI based product. So we can do this. Some of you may not be able to do that, but if someone has a program that's like $2,000, I just tell them, like, hey, if you get into our high level program, you just need 5 sales over the next 6 months. Do you really think I'm not going to help you get 5 more sales? And usually it's like, okay, that makes sense. Yes, I do trust in that. Okay, let's get in. But usually if you have a big enough big enough problem you're addressing, you have the levels of trust, you get them to a point where they look at your process. They say, yes, we trust your process. Do you trust my ability? Yes. You do your pitch. Then you ask them about what other options do you have? Have those options been working in the past? And they're usually going to say no. So it's like, okay, so we have something here that you trust and you know it's going to work. You have all these other options you know don't work, and you're still saying no, even though this is the problem not big enough? Are you okay just dealing with the problem? What's the real issue going on? And then sometimes it is just a logical thing. Like, they're like, I just literally don't have the money, man. Or it's like, and then we can go through, well, how much money do you have to invest right now? Maybe we can do a down payment, and then we can do a payment plan, or, there's logistical things you can do, even with timing issues. It's like, well, what if you put in a deposit today? We let you go through the materials, but we won't start your 6-month plan 2 months from now. And, you can give people more time, or there's always ways to come over the logical side of things if you really need to. So, this style of objection busting is just one way and method in which we do it. There's a lot more ways that we teach it inside of our programs and stuff like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in our 2-day event that we have coming up. But for me, this is usually one of the top objection busters because it gets people out of their automatic reactions and thinking, and it brings them into more logical sort of thinking, or a conscious way of thinking of, okay, I have a problem. I have a trustworthy solution over here. I have all these other options that I also don't know that works. And it kind of just funnels them into making a logical, conscious decision to go with you. And if you did your teachings right, you did everything right, you did everything you needed to do through your funnels and your process, they should trust you and your process and your ability. Your communication was great. And again, in our 2-day event in September, if you guys have not registered for it, I definitely would make sure you do that. But we are going to talk about that a lot more. With that being said, we are going to wrap up this episode here, and pay attention to the next week, because we have another great episode coming for you before we start our 2-day event. It's coming quick, so make sure you're here, and I will see you all there. Take care. Talk to you guys soon.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.